The CDC announced on Thursday that life expectancy is expected to decline this year for the second year in a row, marking the biggest hit our country has seen in almost a century, all right? So the life expectancy figure is actually based on the year of people's birth, current death trends, and other factors. And for decades, it was on the upswing, rising a few months nearly every year. But last year marked the first time in more than half a century that US life expectancy fell 2 consecutive years, all right? A baby born last year in the US is expected to live about 78 years and 7 months on average. Now, typically life expectancy goes back up after a 1-year decline. So this 2-year decline is particularly notable. The last time there was a 2-year drop was 1962 to 1963, and it also happened twice in the 1920s. Now, the CDC is attributing this hit to fentanyl and its opioid cousins because drug deaths are at 63,600 this year, up from about 52,000 in 2015. Now, experts are worried because we are not addressing the opioid epidemic in a particularly effective way that this might continue the trend and we might see a 3-year decline. And we haven't seen a 3-year decline since the 1916, 1917, and 1918 3-year decline, which was accounted for the Spanish flu. All right, so this is a pretty big deal. Death rates continued to go down for people who were 65 and older, while going up for all younger adults who were most affected by the opioid epidemic. Obviously, Trump has said that he might say that this is a public health crisis. Now, just to give you guys some numbers behind that, the Public Health Emergency Fund only holds around $57,000, all right? And last month, the White House placed the true cost of the opioid epidemic at over $500 billion in 2015. So that's a very wide range where we are missing money, and the last, the tax reform bill only took more money away from that. So we're on the right track.
They just couldn't find the money to deal with an epidemic so large, it's knocking down all of our life expectancy.
Right.
Yep. I mean, that is unreal for one thing like that to affect the national average and to bring down how long we live on average in the nation. But that's not important. Tax cuts for the rich, that's really important. So they found all the money in the world for that. They found trillions of dollars for that. For an opioid epidemic, not as much. So the second part of this story, in my opinion, is the degree to which the legal drugs turned out to be the gateway drugs. So 2/3 of last year's drug deaths, 42,000, involved opioids. Yes, heroin, methadone, but prescription painkillers like OxyContin and fentanyl. So what are we doing here? It's super obvious that, remember when they used to say marijuana was a gateway drug? And doesn't that seem quaint and ridiculous and ancient now? But marijuana is still illegal in most places in the country, and certainly at the federal level. And Trump is still talking about cracking down on marijuana. Meanwhile, you got OxyContin and you got all these prescription drugs that are clearly leading to such a degree of death in the country, let alone all the people who were addicted and their lives ruined, but who didn't die, right? So much death that it has brought our national age down. And yet we still do nothing.
And yet he declares it as, as a talking point. He declares it as a priority, right?
Do you know why he does that? Because it affects white men and white women the most. So he's talking to his base without actually doing anything to help them.
Sure, West Virginia, I think, is the state with the greatest fatality number.
Right, and I think that's just, it continues a trend that Trump has perpetuated, in that he has these talking points to appeal to his base, right? Where he says he's going to give them tax cuts, where he says he's going to address this opioid epidemic that is affecting all of them, and then does the exact opposite. So I think they need to wake up and look that this man that they're voting for and still supporting is not helping them. He's actually doing the exact opposite.
And by the way, some of that money, this is one of those situations in which federal dollars really could make a difference. You can these programs that are designed to get these people off of this stuff. I mean, they really need help, and I think it's a program. These programs. This is a classic example where the government really could make a difference with some government spending and marginally well thought out program. So to get people off of drugs, we have experience with it, all too much experience, but it does take money.
Yeah, of course, the racial disparity drives us nuts. That when it was crack, oh my God, criminals. Now a more lethal epidemic, opioids. Well, I mean, they're innocent people. Why are we treating this as a crime? Let's treat it as a health issue. But God bless, it is a health issue. It's always been a health issue. It was a health issue back then. It's a health issue today. But so we can keep beating up Trump on it, and we should, because we got to create pressure to get that money so that real Americans are helped, even if they voted. Like, we're not like the other guys. You voted for Trump in West Virginia, and you did in large numbers. We want to help you. We don't want you to suffer under this epidemic. But also, I know this is a silly public service announcement, but be really careful with painkillers. I'm not saying don't take them, but be really, really careful. It depends on who you are too. It depends on your body makeup, and you might be more prone to addiction than others. So that's why you should be wade into that territory very carefully, as opposed to what we've done for decades, where we're just handing them out like candy. If you become a member of the Young Turks, you'll be saying,
you know, I'm like a smart person.
So do it right now, tytnetwork.com/join. Get the whole Young Turks show every day.